One thing I want to mention is that you might have heard this is a $35 computer, but it's not quite true, and let me explain why. First of all, you only get the base model for $35, which has 2 gigabytes of RAM, and I would recommend getting at least a 4 gig one or the one with 8 gigs of RAM. The 8 gigabyte one is actually different from the rest, and not just because you get more RAM, but because it also allows USB devices to draw more power. Just something to consider. They redesigned the power management component on that board, so get that one if you can. So besides the actual board, you also need a few more items. You need a microSD card for the operating system. You need a keyboard. A mouse. A monitor. You need a power adapter as well. A few cables. So what I have here is a micro HDMI to HDMI cable. So this is the output that Raspberry Pi has. So this is what you need. You could also get an adapter, a micro HDMI to HDMI adapter. And so if you already have an HDMI cable, you can just plug it into that. You also need USB-C cable for your power supply. So all in, you could be looking at least $100 without the monitor. And one more tip, you will want to get a power supply with at least 3 amps. I can't tell you how many problems you will avoid down the line, as there are just so many issues that crop up due to inadequate power. Another item you will need is a microSD card reader. This is so you can image the operating system on the Pi. By the way, when it comes to microSD cards, don't go crazy and get the fastest one. The reason is that your card's speed will be bottlenecked by the Pi at around 35 megabytes per second. So if the card that you can get can achieve much higher speeds on paper, it won't matter. By the way, if you're finding this information helpful, please like this video and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Okay, now let's go and set this up. What I have here is a 4 gigabyte version of Raspberry Pi 4, and the first thing we need to do is image the microSD card. You cannot run your Raspberry Pi without an operating system, so I'm going to use my PC for that.
Okay, are you excited? Let's open a browser window on your PC, on whatever you have, whether it's a Mac or a Windows machine, or maybe a Linux. Go to www.raspberrypi.org/downloads, as you can see on my browser. And then you'll see there are 3 links. There's an imager program for each OS. I am on Windows, so I'm going to click on the Windows link, and I'm going to download the imager program. Okay, then click on Open when done. Make sure you plug in your microSD card now into your microSD card reader, and plug the card reader into your PC. Now click yes. Alright, do not format the disk, you don't need to. The imager will take care of it for you, so cancel out. And then let's proceed with the setup. So click install. This should be fairly quick. Okay, click finish. Choose OS as the first step. This is the operating system for the Raspberry Pi, and there are several to choose from. We'll go with the Raspberry Pi OS, the 32-bit version. As you can see, there are quite a few other ones, but we want to start kind of with the default install. Next step is choose the SD card. Now be really careful. Make sure you're selecting your micro SD card and not some other drive plugged into your machine. Triple check this. You don't want to wipe out one of your disks. So as you see here, my card is 64 gigs, so I'm gonna select this one, and the imager will take care of everything. It will format it, it will image the OS onto that micro SD card. So let's pick that. and then click right. Click yes to continue. This is just to confirm that you're okay with removing any data that you might have on that microSD card. So this process is going to take a while, so I'm going to speed this up. Okay, almost done. Almost done. All right. Okay, and we're done. Let's hit the continue button. And now we are ready to start plugging stuff into our Raspberry Pi.
Okay guys, now that our Raspberry Pi OS is on a microSD card, let's plug it into the Raspberry Pi. You'll see that when you flip the Raspberry Pi over, it's this slot on the back. So insert it face up, as I have it right here. There you go. So just a few more things we need to plug in. Okay, the next thing we want to do is, now that our card is in, let's connect it to the monitor. By the way, do not connect it to Raspberry Pi to the power yet. Power is the last thing you will want to plug in. As I mentioned, this is a micro HDMI cable. So you will want to plug into the port closest to the power jack. And the reason is, if you want to run your Raspberry Pi in 4K at 60 frames per second, this is the only port that supports it. This port can only do 30 frames. All right. That's there. Next thing you want to plug in is the mouse. So I have a, you can plug in a wired mouse. I have here the one with a USB receiver. Okay. So the next thing you'll want to plug in is the keyboard. And by the way, I usually plug in the mouse and the keyboard into the USB 2 ports. You can see the USB 3 are these, have these blue inserts, and the 2 ones have black ones. So this, I plug in the mouse and the keyboard into the USB 2 ports. I leave these empty just in case I want to plug in an SSD drive or a flash drive later on. Okay, so the next thing we'll want to plug in is the power for my monitor right here. So actually pretty simple. Okay, and the last thing is our power. Let's see if this works. And
So the initial setup may take a minute or two, so don't freak out if your screen is still black. Just wait.
And here we are. Here we can set up the country, language, and time zone. So I'm in the United States, so I'm going to pick the United States, American English, time zone. Let's see what they have. I'm in the Pacific time zone. I'm going to pick LA. Use US keyboard. Hit next. Password. So let's just set up the password. Hit next. Now, if you noticed, you'll see that there's a black border around the picture. So I have this black border, so I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to click on this checkbox, the one that says this screen shows a black border around the desktop. So click next. Networks, let me set up my Wi-Fi. Okay. I do recommend updating your software. So let's do it right now.
Okay, let me speed this part up for you. This may take several minutes. And we're done. So hit OK. So let's restart our Raspberry Pi. Alright, and we're back. As you can see, there's no black border around the screen, so that's gone now. Alright, so let's open a browser. Alright, this is a Chromium browser. Let's go to YouTube. So type in www.youtube.com. Alright. And here we are. Got our YouTube running.